I'm Nikki and welcome to the Preppy Possum. Today I'm going to lead you step by step through a painting. Today we're going to paint a lobster. So let's start out by grabbing like a number 6 size brush. So number 4, number 6, whatever you want to draw with. And we're going to grab maybe like some oranges. So whatever kind of oranges you have, just to kind of. And let's start up here at the top and kind of do the end of our tail. So just skip down just a little bit from the top and just do a little whoop. It's kind of like a little rainbow. And then once you get your little rainbow on there, then just kind of jut it out to the sides. So like a little, just a little like triangle kind of, skinny little triangle. And that'll be like the end of our tail. And then we'll just kind of let it gradually get bigger as we come down. So just right from your 2 little triangles. And then I would take it, so like it's gradually getting bigger. I would take it till at least about here, so maybe jump back down and we'll do the end of our face. So start with like a little tiny bump, kind of like you're going around the bottom of an M&M or something. And then we'll just throw like a little diagonal that kind of leans to the top left and one that leans to the top right. And then we'll just take it right back into our body. And then that should give us a pretty good start to the body. So let's go ahead and grab a bunch of orange and just fill it all in to get a layer on there. And then once you have that, then let's go ahead and skip up just a tad from your face. So skip up just a little bit from the bottom. And we're gonna throw like we're gonna start throwing our big claws on there. So you can start on either side, but I'm just gonna start, you know how they're kind of like sectioned off. So we're gonna start with like the first little section. And you can always tweak these to make them, you know, bigger or smaller. So just kind of go for it. And then once you have that first part, then let's add like the second little section. And you can even make it a little bumpy. You know how the claws can be a little bumpy. And then right off the end, we'll throw like our big claws. And these are probably gonna cross over each other. Yours don't have to. But I'm gonna make the top one a little skinnier, the bottom one a little bit bigger. And then we might cross over these later. And then grab a bunch of orange and we'll just fill them all in. And then skip over here to this side and we're gonna do kind of something similar. You can make it a little bit different. Make sure I'm getting it big enough here. Like a bumpy little top edge to it. So now we have the first part of that one. So grab a bunch more orange and we'll just go ahead and fill it all in. And whenever y'all are doing y'all's at home, you can carry it over to the edge, like where your little claw goes to the edge. You could kind of wrap around the side a little bit if you wanted to. All right, so we have the first part of our claws going on. So let's go ahead and wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. And let's grab like a pretty big brush and dry it off and grab maybe like a little bit of white and light blue and seafoam or whatever kind of color background you want to do. I'm just going to make it kind of like beachy and aquish. So whatever color you want to use. And I'm just going to hit the big areas for right now since I just did the lobster body and he's still a little wet. But kind of hit like your big areas to get a layer of paint on there. And then we can come back and always like lighten it up or darken it up. But just kind of get like all the big spaces. I would just leave a little space around him since he's pretty wet. All right, so we got all those big areas, so let's just wipe that one off, chunk it in the water, and we're gonna let it dry for just a second. All right, so now we're gonna get up close to him, but let's go ahead and throw like a little bit more on our background. So a huge brush again, maybe some more background color. Uh-oh, I got a little bit of yellow in there. But this is where, you know, you could get darker or lighter. But I'm just going to hit all these big areas again while we're doing it. And I wouldn't worry about like which direction your brush stroke goes. Just kind of go for it any which way. All right, now that we have most of the background kind of thickened up again, then you can wipe that one off and chunk it in the water and grab a little bit smaller size brush. So I'm probably gonna grab like a number 6 or something again and just use those same colors. And we're just gonna go back and get like all the way up next to everything now. So just use a lot of paint on your brush and then just be real light with it and take it all the way up next to the lobster. It's all right if you eat away at the lobster just a little bit because we'll come back and make them bigger. Just make sure, kind of double check, make sure you got all next to everything so that way our background can be drying. And then once you have that, our little layer on there, just kind of skip around, make sure everything got a little bit. Then just wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. And let's grab like a number 6 again. So a clean number 6, that one you were using, or another one. And just dry it off. And we're gonna grab, let's start with like a little bit, like a yellow and an orange together to give you a little bit like a pale orange kinda. It's like a golden yellow and a little bit of orange. And now we'll do like the parts of our body. So skip up like above your big claws and throw kind of like a little rainbow on there. And don't worry if it gets really thick, because we'll come back and thin it up a little. And don't worry if it goes on really light, because it'll dry a little darker. And then I would skip up a couple inches again and throw like another little rainbow. And then maybe a couple more, just little whoops, kind of giving the impression, because we'll thin those up anyway. And then I would even throw like a little bit of this, like on the top edge of your little tail parts that jut out a little, just to have a little bit of light color up there. And if it doesn't get light enough, we can come back and throw some more light on there later. All right, so we got a little bit of light going on through our body. While we have the light on our brush, let's throw a little bit through our claws. So I'm gonna throw a little bit. And then we'll come and kind of add some dark here in a second to kind of make them look even more like claws. But just throw a little bit through each section and through your little pinchers. Because when you're doing something like this, like the more paint you have on it, the better. Then you can kind of blend and add lights and darks. But I'm just throwing a little bit through my pinchers, a little bit through my little segments, and then we'll come back and add some more color to it. All right, but that's a good little start. Maybe a little bit through our head. Now let's grab a little bit of that dark red. It's like a dark red with even a little orange. And we're gonna throw that kind of through the sides of our body. So you can start up here with like your little head part and throw just a little bit to the left and the right. It's gonna help them kind of look like the little sections. My background's still a little wet, so we might have to come back and add to it a little. So just a little bit through your edges, and then throw some through your tail too. And then a little bit through the bottom part of your little pieces that jut out. And then we're going to do the same kind of thing through our little pinchers. So I would throw like a little bit kind of through the sides of some of those. Definitely like our big parts of our claws. This is when you can bump it a little bit again. And don't worry if this gets a little thick, because we're getting ready to come back with the oranges and thin it down. But like I said, the more paint you put on there, then it'll be like easier to blend. So just go for it. And if you needed, I'm using like a number 6, but if you wanted to use like a number 4 or something to get a little bit smaller, you can do that. I'll probably go back and hit it again. And I'm using a little bit of like dark brown with a dark red just to get it even darker. All right, so we kind of have a little bit of dark through our claws. And let's throw a little bit up here to kind of separate these. All right, so that's a pretty good start to our dark. So let's wipe that one off, and you don't have to rinse it out, just kind of wipe it off and grab mostly like oranges again. Could have a little bit of red still, but mostly those oranges. And we're just gonna thicken up everywhere where we needed to add like another layer to our lobster. And this is where you can kind of thin up our little light colored rainbows. You can kind of thin those up a little. We'll just throw just a little bit through the top because, all right, so we have another layer on those, and now let's throw another layer through our little pinchers, our big pinchers rather. And this is where you can thin down any of the dark if it got crazy. To this side. Now we've about got like another layer on our whole lobster, which is good. That'll make it easier to blend. Okay, so we've got them pretty well started. Might add a little bit more dark down here. A little bit more of that red and brown. Okay, so we got our start of our lobster, so let's wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. And we're gonna let it dry for just a second. All right, now let's add like our little feelers and all the rest of our little legs. So I would grab I'm gonna use like a number 4 size brush, but you could use a number 4, or if you like a smaller brush, you could use a really tiny. And I'm gonna throw them on there with probably a little bit of orange and red, and then I can go back and add some lights and darks. So just kind of load your brush with a lot of paint. And let's add like our little feelers right here, our little legs. So I'd skip up a tad bit from your claw, and then just load it up and be real light. And I'm gonna probably let this one run into my claw. And then skip up a smidge more. And then just throw you another little one. And this one, you kind of want it to end with a little point. So kind of load your brush with a lot of paint and then just be really light with it. And don't worry if you get too like crazy, you can always come back and thin it up. And then we're gonna do the same thing over here. It's just this side we see more of our little legs. So I'm gonna add one that kind of bends. And you can have like more or less showing than me. You know, there's no like, everybody's lobster is gonna be sitting a little bit different. So I'm just gonna do like a couple that kind of bend like that. And then I'll throw maybe like a long one, like skip up a smidge more and throw another one. And y'all can even carry y'all's off the edge a little bit. So if you want to kind of wrap it around the sides, you can do that. And that way you don't have to frame it if you want to paint your edges and wrap it around. And then we'll do our long little fillers that come all the way from our face. So I would still start out with that same kind of color, and we're just gonna kind of do a little whoop, like you're going like underneath a dime. And then it's gonna go all the way over our lobster and kind of curly Q up. So just go for it. If you get crazy, you can always let it dry for a second and come back and thin it up. It's not gonna show up too good right now, but once we add the lights and darks, he'll show up. I'm gonna take it up a little bit further. Maybe like do a little twirl, take it up again. And then I'm just gonna let it all right, that's a big filler. And then we'll do the same thing over here. I just wouldn't make it as curly Q because I think it looks good to have them a little different, but you can do it however. And then we'll do the same kind of thing. So it's just gonna cut through over our body. So have like a little droop from your face. And then I'm just gonna go right over my little legs. And then I'm gonna take this one like on off the edge, but if you wanted to keep it on there, you could. All right, so we have the first part to our other little legs and our little fillers. Oh yeah, we need our little fillers up here, so right there kind of near the very tip of your face, just grab a bunch of paint. And I'm just gonna kind of let mine probably stop when it hits the claw, but you could throw it over the claw too if you wanted to. And then I'm gonna do one on this side too. I might let it go over. All right, so we have the first part of those. So now let's grab like some light colors. So some yellow and orange together, and we're gonna throw some bright on there. So kind of skip around in a few places. All right. Then while we have that yellow and orange, let's just go ahead and throw like a few more lights, like on our lobster, anywhere where you need like a little bit more light. Because like I said, the more paint you put on this bad boy, the better he's gonna look. Maybe a little bit through our little sections. Maybe even a little bit more through our little dividers through our body. Okay, so we got some light. Now let's grab a little bit of the dark red with some of that dark brown again. So we want to add a few darks to like our legs. So same thing like how we did with the light. We're just going to do this in a few places. And don't worry if you get your little fillers and everything like too thick. It'll be easy to come back and slim them up. And then I'm going to throw some dark on like the little legs and stuff too. And I'm just throwing like a little bit more dark kind of everywhere where we had it before, just the places where you wanted to kind of go back over it anywhere. Maybe a tad bit more through our tail, those little parts of the dart, like through the very end. But I think we got it pretty good. Okay, so now we have that, so let's go ahead and wipe that off, chunk it in the water, and let's grab a teeny tiny brush, so a really little one, like a number 1, and dry it off and grab a little bit of black, and we're gonna throw our little beady eyes. So I would skip back a little bit behind your little fillers, and I'm not trying to be like too perfect with this lobster. He's kind of more like abstract and cute than he is like perfect, so. But I'm just throwing like a little Tic Tac size or a little smaller than a Tic Tac. Little beady eyes on there. And they're really just gonna look like tiny little beady black eyes, but to make it like pop a little bit more, you could grab a tiny bit of white and add like a little glare to like one side, kind of like a little C. And that's gonna help it kind of pop out, like he's looking at you. And then you could thin up your filler if you want to, but I kind of like a bigger filler. I might add a little bit more to my body, but then I think we're ready to sign it. So I might grab like a number 6 again and a little bit more orange. And I'm just gonna throw like a little bit more, kind of do it in like a round, kind of like a, kind of lean it to the right on the right hand side and lean it to the left on the left hand side. I'll kind of get him looking, make his body look good and round. And then I'm going to do the same thing through the other like big parts, because that's what like you really see. I don't want to take away all the dark. All right, I think we got him pretty good and thickened up. Anywhere else where you wanted to get cray-cray, you could add a little bit more, but I think it's pretty good. So let's go ahead and wipe that one off and chunk it in the water, and we're gonna sign it. So I would use like a number 1 again. And now we have a lobster. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Be sure to check us out. We're on Cox Street in Asheboro. And be sure to check out our website, www.thepreppypossum.com.